Shabbat Shalom, fam. This is Or Ibri, author of Making Your Enemy Your Footstool, investor and consultant. And this morning, I'm going to start off with the reading on a topic from my book, Making Your Enemy Your Footstool. This week's topic, I want to focus on fears. So in the chapter, let's see. In chapter 6, which is titled Self-Preservation and Health, Physical, Mental, and Spiritual, one of the components that I talk about when dealing with your health is fear. So I'm going to read a little bit from the fear section, and then I'm going to go into a little explanation. There is a dangerous correlation between fear and how it relates to our overall health. When our bodies respond to fear, that response lowers our immune system or our ability to fight off diseases. What's more astounding is that only about 10% of your fears are real. The under 90% are self-created. It is impossible to defeat something that isn't real. What also gets compounded on this is you spend most of your time making poor decisions based on your fears because you are trying to protect yourself from a threat that does not exist. Let's stop and do an exercise. Sit down and write down all of your fears. Now label them by reality or self-created. Most of the self-created ones can be identified as what-if scenarios. Once you have done this exercise, replace those fear scenarios with positive affirmation situations. For example, you may have created a fear that you might not be able to pay all your bills for the upcoming month. Replace that fear with the affirmation, I'm going to get all of my bills paid next month. Next, create ways on how you can earn the extra money you need to pay off all of your upcoming bills. Whether the extra money comes from working extra hours at your current job or utilizing a skill that you have to generate extra money. You will create the surplus you need to achieve your goal. So in the section about fear, I really touch on the importance of fear and how it has a negative effect on the health of your body. Fear compromises your immune system. Fear weakens your immune system. Fear causes your body to flood itself with unnecessary, what is the word I'm looking for? Oh man, it slipped my mind. With unnecessary hormones that if continuously introduced in your body and continuously flowing throughout your system causes more damage than good to your body. So you have to make sure that whatever it is that you possibly could be fearing, that you figure out solutions on how to overcome those fears. This is the danger of being an individual who is either pessimistic or someone who is always focusing on negative circumstances and situations. You have to be someone who is optimistic. Yes, you want to be a realist, but you have to be optimistic, and you also have to make sure that you are solution oriented, not problem oriented. So don't be an individual focusing on problems. Be an individual that sees the problem, acknowledges the problem, but focuses on solutions to overcome the problem. With this practice, this will allow you to lower your levels of fear, which cause extra stress and anxiety, which causes extra tension, which causes uncertainty. If you lower your levels of fear, these are things that you remove from your mind, you remove from your body, and you allow yourself to be at peace with your entity, yourself, and the world around you. You have to remember, honestly, you control your life, but there's not much that you control, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, for instance, if you're driving down the road, you can control the rate of speed you're going. You can control if you have on your seatbelt or not. You can control if you're allowing yourself to be distracted or not. You can control following all the road rules. You can't control if someone else is not paying attention, they pull out in front of you and you hit them. That's out of your control. Other people's actions are out of your control. However, if you can control as much as what you can control, so even in that example, if someone pulls out in front of you and you hit them, you can't control that. But what you can control is the amount of attention that you pay to the road in that scenario. That's what you can control. So one of the things that I learned, I have my CDLs. One of the things that I learned in trucking school is be prepared for all circumstances and prepare for the unpreparable. Also, one of the things that we were taught in trucking school is you always want to have your eyes. Yes, you want to be paying attention to what's going on around you. First, you have to be paying attention to everything. We had to check our side view mirrors every 3 to 5 seconds. We have to check our rear view mirror every 10 to 12 seconds. We have to scan what's going on around us. But on top of that, we also have to be cognizant of what's going on at least 200 yards ahead of us. That's what I learned in trucking school. And I know you may be sitting here like, man, that's a lot to have to pay attention to. It's a lot more that you're going to have to deal with if you're not paying attention and you in a big truck hit somebody. That's how you have to be in your life. Like sometimes people are like, I have so much I have to do. So it's better that you have all of that to do and you pay attention to it and you get it done than for you to let it go by the wayside. And now you have to deal with the consequences of that, which are a lot worse than had you just been on top of your game. So it's important that when you're dealing with fear, that you make sure that you control all the variables that you can control, lower those things. And also, I'm sorry, I touched on it in the book. Stop making up scenarios in your head. You have to stop doing that. If you continue to make up scenarios in your head, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's something you can't overcome. You can't defeat something that isn't real. Something that does not exist, something that was concocted inside of someone's head. You cannot overcome what is not real. Something that doesn't exist, you can't defeat. Because there's no target, there's no actual entity for you to try and overcome. You can't. The only way to defeat something that's not real is to acknowledge that it's not real and stop acknowledging that thing. That's it. But as far as creating a scenario that isn't real and then trying to defeat it, you're never going to win. You are never, ever, ever going to win that scenario because it really doesn't exist. So we have to stop creating these scenarios in our heads of things that don't exist, because what it does is it takes away energy from the things that actually does exist, and it distracts us from what we're actually trying to build and do. And on top of that, we start basing our life and basing our decisions off of those fears that aren't real. How many times let's just say, I'm not sure, let's think of something. Okay, let's all go back to when we were our teenage years. Not all of us, but a lot of us were self-conscious about the things that people had to say or what they thought about us. So, for instance, we may have had an outfit that we wanted to wear, but we thought people were going to pick on us because we wore that outfit last week. So what ended up happening is we either went and spent money on new clothes that could have been money for something else, or we pressed our parents to get something that we didn't need when a lot of times they were already struggling, or we just had this phobia in our minds about what people were thinking about us. So then we started building up false hate against people because we thought other people would be talking about us. Unnecessary. That's all unnecessary. When you could wear the same outfit every day, and 9 times out of 10, no one's going to say anything to you. Or you could wear the same outfit on a Monday and wear it on a Friday, and no one's going to say anything to you. So we have to make sure that we stop making up scenarios in our head and then basing our decisions off of those scenarios. I know that wasn't a great example, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head as far as that. But think of your own. Think of a scenario that you totally made up, and it caused you to make decisions in your life that were detrimental. Here's one. There are a lot of people who they're afraid of being hurt in relationships. So they either don't get in relationships or they have all of these trust issues in a relationship, and it causes all of these other issues that didn't actually exist. So you could be somebody who thinks, man, my spouse is cheating on me. So you're always going through their phone. If they're going from the house longer than you feel they should be going, you're blowing them up. You're always accusing them. You're making your relationship torture. You're making your relationship a prison. When had you not conjured up this thought that, oh, my spouse is going to cheat on me, your relationship would have been more fruitful. Your relationship would have been more peaceful. But you created something in your head that never was, and your spouse isn't doing that. But you're not going to ever defeat that. If you always think, oh, my spouse is going to cheat on me, you can look through their phone 1,000 times. You're never going to find anything. But then you start making up stuff. Then you go and look for something, and then you find something that really wasn't there, but your mind turns it into something. Or you just start creating false signs in your head that really aren't there. And you can't ever overcome that, and your mind's going to always do that because that's what you're triggering it to do. That's what it's bringing in. So the most important thing that we have to take from this message today is controlling our fears, not allowing them to control us, lowering our fears, coming up with rational solutions to overtake our fears so that way our fears don't negatively affect our health, and also not creating scenarios out of fear in our minds and then basing decisions that we make in our life on those fears. So with that, I say peace and shalom. You all have a beautiful week. This is Ora Ibri. I'm out.